Welcome to Mondays Beyond the Mic. We are so happy that you decided to spend your Monday evening with us. So, again, Mondays Beyond the Mic. This is the place where we go beyond surface level topics in relationships. This space provides us with an opportunity to delve into more personal or profound aspects of our lives. So, we want to say thank you to our faithful followers that's here every Monday with us. We want to welcome those that's here for the very first time. We thank you for being here with us. As always, we put out a disclaimer. We are not professionals, but we're professionals in our own lives and our experiences. So we share that in the hopes that it would heal somebody and set somebody free and help them to get counseling or whatever that moving forward looks like to them. Again, we come from my personal experience. Again, house rules. We have one house rule that covers everything: respect, respect, and respect. Everybody's opinion here on this platform will be respected. And with that being said, y'all see, we have a new face. This is Monday. We told you we bring professionals to help us out and navigate these relationship waters. So, co-host, before we continue, do you have anything you would like to say to the people?
Yes, yes. Welcome and good evening. We want you to remember to like, click, and share. And we absolutely love those super chats. So please let us see them coming. Okay.
And as you see, we have Coach Ebony Smalls. We have the Transforming Leader Consultant. That is her business. We're going to let her speak. She's going to navigate us tonight. But before we get started, co-host, would you please tell the audience something about our fabulous guest?
Yes, yes. Welcome, Ebony. So, Ebony Smalls is a fractional leader, coach, and author. For nearly 25 years, she has served organizations and led high performing teams to produce large scale global, in person, and digital events that have impacted millions. She is a maximizer of people and resources and skilled in organizational leadership. She is known for developing and unleashing leaders. Ebony's passion is to transform leaders through coaching, leadership development, and ultimately high level collaboration partnerships that have generational impact. She is an excellent communicator, an ordained minister, and teacher. Ebony received her master's in professional studies degree with a distinction from Alliance University and a bachelor's of arts from the State University of New York and Binghamton. Ebony serves on the executive pastoral team at the River Church. She is an author of The Leader in You Discovering Your Unexpected Path to Influence and is the CEO of Transforming Leaders Consultant. Welcome, Ebony.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you both. I'm excited to talk about the topic that everyone loves to talk about, right? Relationships. We can't get enough of it, but it's an honor to be here. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Awesome. We welcome you. We welcome you. We welcome you. So tonight's topic is, of course, relationships, and the topic is untangle us. So Coach Ebony is going to help us get untangled in some of these situations, or even help us move forward in relationships. So before we get started, relationships, I want to say relationships are like knots. So let's think of some knots. Sometimes they get tangled up with misunderstandings, miscommunication, and unmet expectations. Just as you carefully untangle a knot by patiently working through the threads, we need to carefully work through the changes in our relationships, unraveling the complications one step at a time until things become clear and smooth again. So, Coach Ebony, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, co host, take it away.
Now we're going to talk about the growth mindset in relationships. So, the definition: a growth mindset in relationships refers to the belief that both individuals and relationships can evolve and improve over time through effort, learning, and persistence. So, here's the question: How does adopting a growth mindset positively influence relationships, both romantically and otherwise?
One of the common misconceptions that people have is that those that are intimately in our lives should just accept us as we are and not expect anything more from us. Well, if you have that sort of mindset, then you are sure to have a relationship that will not grow beyond its infancy stage. In order to see your bonds more deeply connected, to see your relationship grow, evolve, change as you become a different person with age and with experience, you have to be committed to allowing your mindset to change in the relationship, which could very well look like you and the person that you're in relationship with emerging into different people than when you first met? Do you have the capacity to grow in understanding whom they are today, or do you hold them hostage to be the person that they were when you first met them? So, in order to have this, I would say, successful relationship, a healthy relationship, one that grows and evolves over time, and one that creates a safe and healthy space for growth, you have to be willing to grow individually as well as grow in the relationship. And if people can accept that we don't show up as perfect, no matter how great, grand, and wonderful we believe ourselves to be, then you can embrace this mindset. But something else that I like to remind people of, and you will oftentimes hear married couples say this, that relationships can serve as a mirror. And the very things about yourself that are, you might feel like unlovable, that rub people the wrong way, the person whom you are in a deep connection with, a deep relationship with, they are going to bring that stuff to the surface. And you have to be willing to hear it, acknowledge it. If you don't understand it, say, okay, I don't understand what you're saying, but try, for the sake of the love that you have for this other person, to dare to consider that they could potentially be right in how they are experiencing you. And perhaps this is something that you need to address, an area where you need to grow, an area where you might need to mature a little bit more emotionally. And maybe they're not wrong. And if we are curious about ourselves and have that same curiosity to get to know people in a different way, I think we have a chance to have more healthier relationships.
That was
That's
so good. So that's really, really good. Before you say something, because two things stood out to me, right? One thing I heard you say is evolving. Us as individuals, we're always evolving, and we should not hold our partner or whomever we're in relationship with hostage.
Yeah,
We all grow, or we should be grown. If we not, I think that's kind of a problem, but that's something else for a different show. The other thing I heard is when you're talking about mirroring, pretty much summing it up, the truth hurts. The
totally.
truth hurts when you're looking at yourself in the mirror.
It does.
I would say one of the things that I liked, I mean, I liked it all, but um, it asking for clarity, I hear what you've said, or I heard what you said. Can you clarify what you mean? And I think a lot of times in relationships, we hear what we want to hear and never hear the clarity, because if that person loves you, they're not doing it. Hopefully they're not doing it maliciously. They're trying to help you become the best version of yourself. So just hearing, I guess, hearing to listen and not to respond would be one of the.
Absolutely. And yeah, I absolutely agree with you in that. And I think I would also offer that sometimes people are not thinking about how can you be better. They just want you to know how they are experiencing you in that moment.
Mm.
So something I love to ask people for is, can you give me an example of what you're referencing? And they might take you back. They might know the date, the time, the second that it happened, that you said it, and you're just like, wow, okay, like I didn't expect you to have receipts on this encounter. But they just want you to see something. And I think the key is in all of it is to not dismiss it. That's when you start to have some real roadblocks and you create impasses in a relationship where you resist what the other person is saying and you're not even willing to consider it.
Okay.
That's good. And before we move on, so this is the part where we take a commercial break. And our commercial breaks, we go to comments.
Oh, okay.
Lady Dawn B said, "Great Monday, HG family and Bravo Nation." Hey, Lady Dawn B. She, we here. Um, we here.
We are here. So thank you all for being here. And I don't think we've ever had we here before, but we thank you for being here. And hopefully you are supporting Coach Ebony. We love the support here. Okay, let's move on.
Number two, what steps can a couple take to foster a growth mindset, especially when faced with challenges or disagreements?
One, I would say if this is a relationship that you are serious about, that you are committed to, I think it's important that you both learn each other's attachment styles. If you are unfamiliar with attachment styles, there is a way that we are all hardwired to show up in relationships, and so much of it exists as a result of childhood experiences and how we were raised, or whether or not we grew up in a secure environment where we were taught to identify emotions, express our thoughts, express our feelings, if that was cultivated within our family, or perhaps we were taught to suppress how we felt, or your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings were dismissed, you weren't validated, so you might show up in a relationship as dismissive, as avoidant. We have to understand that there's always a root cause to every behavior, every idiosyncrasy of our character. There is a reason why we show up like that. And if you are, again, this posture of curiosity, if you're willing to explore that, there are short tests that you can take, probably 10 questions or less, that will help you to identify what your attachment style is. And I find that as couples look at that, it will bring a lot more empathy into the relationship, because actions that you might have viewed as personal and intentionally being done to hurt or harm you, you will realize it's just how they're wired. It's not a response to you. It can disarm a lot of arguments. I would definitely say therapy, 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 counseling, counseling, counseling. Um, thank God for mental health professionals that helped us to unpack our systems of thinking, help us to unpack our paradigms of thought. So much of the way we think is shaped, again, by family. It's shaped around what mama always said, what daddy always said, and it becomes entrenched within you as a core belief. And you might not have any recognition of why you identify something as a truth. It might only be true to your family dynamic. It may be true nowhere else. And you need people to kind of help mine your thought process, again, because oftentimes we think that everything that comes through our mind is right. So I would encourage that. And if you are a person of faith, I'll say if you're a person of the Christian faith, you have the support of pastors, and those that offer lay pastoral care that can help, again, be an added support. But don't be afraid to get external support where you need it. There are tons of books, 5 love languages, so many different resources. We live in an age where mental health is championed, relational health is championed, and you can just go out there and get the resources and support that is necessary. So I think those are great external elements to help. But I think the biggest thing that we bring to the table is love, it's empathy, and it's a desire to communicate and show up for the person that you love. Love is an action word. It should be demonstrated and not only said. And with that comes a great commitment to learn the person that you're with, to serve the person that you're with. And I think couples can really be helped by utilizing the resources at their disposal, as well as attempting to just be the best version of themselves.
Wow,
Thank
that's
you.
good. You want to go first?
I,
You
I'm
have
sorry.
something to say?
Oh, yes.
I said
So
you
I
want to go
want
first?
to
You go
say, I
first.
was thinking about, you said people often say mind your business, and you said mind your thoughts. I like that because a lot of times we're quick to tell somebody, mind your business, this is what I'm dealing with. But if I tell myself, mind your thoughts,
Yeah.
because those thoughts turn into the words that we lash out with,
Absolutely.
and now we spend more time than we want apologizing for something that we said if we had just mind our thoughts. So
Oh
thank you.
yeah,
And even
absolutely.
with that, I'll piggyback on that with Manya thoughts. Again, it can come back to those things that we were taught, that we were indoctrinated to those beliefs. And like you said, it may be only true to our family. And we go into these relationships. Well, grandma said, okay, but grandma was born in 1919. We are in 2024. What are we talking about? Right. And we talked about evolving. And another thing you brought up, which is good, we talked about, I'm not sure what week that was, probably 2 weeks ago, we talked about attachment styles
Hmm.
and knowing the different types of attachment styles. So very, very good. Yeah, mind your thoughts, because sometimes I'm not going to talk about y'all. I got to mind my thoughts. I'm not going to talk about nobody else. This up here is serious. So yes, I do have to mind my thoughts
Hmm.
sometimes. So that's very good.
All right, the last question. Can you share an example of a relationship transformed by a shift in mindset, and what was the key turning point?
Yeah, I would say the shift occurred in this particular relationship that comes to mind when I was willing to, I use the word wrestle with the feedback that I was being given. Um, because the feedback was being given from such a place of I would say truth from this individual, it was something that I had to reckon with, but that it didn't immediately resonate. And showing up as a person of faith, someone that believes in the power of prayer, that seeks Christ for wisdom and insight, I had to pray about the things that were said to me. And my specific prayer was, okay, God, you have to help me to see this. And to understand, is this feedback that I need to just like let in one ear and go out the other? Or are you trying to speak to me about some areas of growth within myself as a result of this feedback? And just allowing myself to pause, think about what was said, and to replay the scenario and try to see it from the other person's lens. I was then able to disarm the weapons that I initially felt in that defensive posture of the words and just sit back and say, wait a minute, wow, I can see why they feel that way. And as I think about the reason why I said that or why I did that, yeah, there were things that I was feeling which made me act in those ways. And I didn't even realize they were responding to a feeling that they were discerning from me and not only responding to the words that they heard me share.
Mm,
So, what I was able to do is then go back to that person and say, I thought about what you said, and you're right. Like, whoa, like that's like a big deal to tell somebody that they were right about something that they said. And in saying that, I validated their experience. I was able to address some of the things within me that were causing me to react in a certain way. And whatever that impasse was able to be removed from us, and we were able to move forward from a place of mutual respect and from a place of, again, growth mindset. And so now we were able to grow to a different place, I would say, of intimacy and vulnerability in the relationship space because we survived conflict. And I think that's what people don't understand, is that conflict is a natural part of life just as much as it is to see the sun shining on a sunny day. We have to embrace the fact that conflict will always be with us, but how we show up in conflict is where the intentionality comes. And if I have a mindset that these things will happen, then I can have a fighting chance to actually have conflict in a healthy way. And I believe that when healthy conflict does exist, it will unlock the doors to a deeper level of relationship that was not possible if you only lived on a surface level with that person. So in the end, it catapulted us to a different space where it's like, I can hold space with you in this place and we're going to be okay. We're going to be able to survive a difficult moment and it's not going to derail us because I trust you enough to hear what you're saying. see if there's validity in the words, and then be able to make the adjustment or to get help to make the adjustment. And so that was really pivotal. And that would be certainly my response to this question.
That was good.
Okay.
I just have one thing on that you said that is so important, validating somebody else's feelings. I think that is extremely important to let the person know that I see you, I hear you, and I understand you. And
Mhm.
even for you and us as individuals to step back to say, okay, let me look at myself and see if there's any validity in what they said. That's the real truth test, and the hard part
Yeah.
is to look at yourself. And like you said, we like to think we're so grand and wonderful. And it's like, who, me? I offended you? It couldn't be me, right? So I think that is so important. Very good. Very good. Validating others' feelings.
And it's hard. This is hard work. When you hear couples say relationships are hard, and specifically married couples, those who have entered into a place of real covenant and commitment with each other, I get it 1,000% why this stuff is hard work, because you have to be willing every day to put in the effort to show up as your best self. And it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, that is very good. You have anything, co-host, before we move on? No? Okay, so we're going to move on. We're going to talk about communication and conflict resolution, right? You touched a little bit on that. So, this definition we have is communication and conflict resolution involves the process and skills used to express thoughts, feelings, needs, while managing disagreements constructively. Now, we touched a little bit on that. Okay, so the question is, what strategies do you recommend for resolving conflicts where both parties feel they're right? We got some head button going on.
Where both people feel they're right. Well, you might be right about some things, but you both actually can be seeing the same situation from a different lens, because you both show up to that relational space with different worldviews, different experiences, a lifetime of experiences, all coming to kind of a cataclysmic moment in one place. So that's the first thing, that either everything can be wrong, right, about what they're saying, and perhaps there's some validity. So one, I would say definitely listen, and I think Dr. Elaine touched on this earlier. Listening, seeking to understand versus only wanting to be heard. That's really key. Your posture in the conversation. I genuinely want to hear and understand how you are experiencing whatever the subject is. And so I am going to listen to you. I'm not going to cut you off while you're speaking. I'm not preparing for my rebuttal and my response. I am really trying to understand, because I care about you. I value you. You are someone that's important to me. And if this is really disturbing to you, it's disturbing to me. So we got that listening. We have that desire to understand. And then sometimes you got to just be curious, which might mean you're asking follow up questions. Okay, well, I think you talked about this earlier, Coach Pache, about you're asking for clarity. You're trying to get that understanding. And then you might need to tell this individual, I need to take a little bit of time to think about this. One, we should never expect to resolve conflict in one conversation. Sometimes it's going to be a series of conversations. You're going to have five questions in that one moment, but when you pause and think about it and replay that conversation in your mind later, there might be 10 more other questions that come up. And so you want to allow for space in the conflict to say, can we continue to talk about this? Like, I might have some questions for you now, but I don't feel like this is going to be resolved for me right here and right now. Are you willing for us to continue to dialogue about this? And then I do think that there should be some agreement as to how that dialogue is taking place, because some people are in person people. They want to talk about things in person. Others are comfortable with talking about things over phone, or maybe having a conversation via FaceTime. I think once you get into email, like not email, excuse me, well, maybe email and text messages, when it gets to that written communication, it can get a little tricky, because you can't really infer tone. You can't sometimes disarm words. Some people speak very literally, very plainly. And so a lot can come to a point of misunderstanding. I'm a big voice notes person. So I might send you a voice note, then a multi-paragraph text message. But I think it's also important for that person to understand what your needs are. I might have a need to communicate with you how I'm feeling in a moment. It might not be in a packaged way as you might prefer it. So I might have to tell you, like, listen, I might text you. I hope that's cool with you. If you want to respond back to me by phone and we talk it through, that's all good. But I'm a writer. Like, I need to process and I have to write my thoughts. So you might have to establish what's the rules of engagement here. And I know we're making this sound very cookie cutter, and as if, you can have like a 7 point, a step approach to handling conflict. But I would say beyond that, you want to both allow yourself space to resolve the conflict over time, and to actually make sure it's really resolved, and not something that's halfway resolved because you both are being conflict avoidant. And that would mean that this is not going to ever get resolved, and there's just going to be layers upon layers of conflict. And one thing we were arguing about, maybe one thing, but now it's 10 other things because we didn't resolve the first thing. So you have to be intentional to actually resolve it, which is going to take work. But there are some instances where you might have to agree to disagree on something, and be willing to kind of fall on your sword a bit and say, okay, I might not be getting the resolution here that I desired, but at least we had the opportunity to have a conversation, and maybe the resolution will come at another point. So you're allowing space for maybe resolution in a year versus resolution in a week, because the process of change happens for all of us in different spaces and at different paces of time. So if I were to recap, I would say listen, seek to understand versus only seeking to be understood, committing to clarity by asking follow-up questions, allowing yourself to time to process after the conversation. Perhaps that's where you bring in a trusted third party to help you process. Maybe it's your counselor, maybe it's your therapist, maybe it's that one go-to friend that is impartial and unbiased in their support of you, and being willing to then go back to that individual and revisit whatever the conflict was, and asking people what they need from you. Like, what do you need from me to bring this to a place of resolution? And again, be willing to meet in the middle. And then also understanding, lastly, that sometimes things are not immediately resolvable, and they might take some time because there may need to be growth toward the process of change in order for there to be resolution.
Very, very good. It was a lot in there. Loved everything you said, but one thing that stood out to me was getting to that space. I'll talk about me. I know for me, one thing I had to learn about myself in conflict, or if I'm upset, I need time in that space. Don't try to force me to speak because it's not going to come out right. I need time to process it, how it was said. Was it me? How did I contribute to it? So, forcing me, I know for me, don't try to force me to speak because then it turns into something else.
Mm.
And that something else is really sometimes not good. So yeah, it's like don't try to force me. I'm that person that, depending on how sensitive the topic was, how emotionally I was or the person was, give me some time and some space and I can convey that, hey, I'm not ready to talk about that right now. I
Mhm.
need 2 days. I need whatever. Yeah. Again, depending on how sensitive the
Mm.
topic was. Do
And
you
that's
have anything? Hmm.
I just respond to you. That's an excellent distinction to make with regard to letting a person know what is your process for processing the information, because we live in a present day culture that is big on conflict avoidance and is big on ghosting. And ghosting can be very destabilizing. It can be emotionally abusive for the person on the other end. You never know what that triggers for them, rejection and abandonment. It is the most terrible thing you can do to ghost people when they are in a place of vulnerability. And I do believe that when you are in covenant, and that's relational covenant, whether you've signed a marriage license or certificate, you're in covenant with that person. Your intention, even in conflict, should always be to care for their well being, which means you give them a heads up as to what you need, which means that you say to them what you just said, Coach Pache. I need a couple days to think about this. Please let me get back to you. Allow them into what they should expect, but don't just ignore them, ignore their calls, ignore their text messages. That is emotionally unhealthy, toxic behavior. And if you're doing that in any relationship, you need to stop and you need to find the words to communicate. Okay, you can find the words to communicate what you want. So find the words to communicate also what you need. That's important to build trust and to maintain that trust and safety in a space of conflict.
Y'all heard that out there before we go to commercial. Find the words.
Find the words.
Find the words.
Radiant Rose says, "This is how a podcast of women speaking about relationships should be!" Exclamation point. Very calm and gentle in the approach. Love. Thank you, Radiant Rose.
Yeah.
Kathy says, "Good evening, everyone." Good evening,
Good evening,
Kathy.
Kathy. Welcome back.
Radiant Rose says 100%.
So she's referring to what you said. I love that. Find the words. And it's funny you say that because we can find the words for anything else. But when it's time for that conflict, it's so, because it is tough. It is tough. It's not easy, but yeah, find the words. Next question. How can a couple use disagreements as an opportunity to strengthen their relationship rather than damage it?
Hmm. The courage to have the conversation is half the battle. No relationship is going to survive avoiding a disagreement. And essentially, what disagreements boil down to is I have a need that may be unmet, or the way you responded to a situation was disagreeable for me. It maybe aroused something within me, it provoked something within me, and I want you to know that. Now, when you are in a familiar space with someone, we all have quirks that are just going to show up with us no matter how long we've been in relationship, no matter how many conversations have been had. So there does arise the need sometimes for you to just to accept that this is a part of that person's like core characteristic, and this is probably something about them that's not going to change. But I like to look at disagreements as something that could be a violation of boundary, something that you have done that has kind of transgressed me in a particular way. And this is something so important to me that I have to communicate with you, that I am not going to just kind of pass over with, like, okay, that's just how she is, or that's just how he is. I need to let you know that this is not okay, that it doesn't present and show up as okay for me. And I need us to find another way to do this, because if we continue with this, it's going to translate into me feeling a particular way about this relationship dynamic, and I don't want to go there with you. So when someone is disagreeing with you, they are asking you to hear them. They are asking you to prioritize how whatever you're doing is impact them. And yes, they are asking you to change to a degree, to demonstrate a level of care for me, that you are willing to make this personal adjustment to show up in the way that I need you. And this is the sacrificial part of relationships. And we have to gird the foundation that relationships are sacrifice. You don't get to just say that this is the hill I'm going to die on. You live your life in service of the person that you're in relationship with, which means that I might have to alter some things about myself because I love and care for you and care for your well-being, that it is important to me how I show up with you. And that is where sacrificial love and relationship comes in. So again, disagreement is just someone wanting to be heard, someone looking for you to make an adjustment. And you can have a disagreement and it not be earth shattering and the end of the world. You can have a disagreement without yelling, without using profanity, without being disrespectful. I think everyone needs to understand baseline. Men want respect, women want love. If you can understand those dynamics, then you have a fighting chance to have healthy, confrontation with each other. But it's not time to go below the belt. It's not time to talk about their mama. It's not time to talk about how you can't stand their family. Like, we want to fight fair, and we want to just kind of keep the main thing, and talk about what the issue is, and try to come to some place of agreement and avoid the low blows where possible.
That is very, very good.
Tisha Harris says, I love what Coach Ebony said about ghosting. I love this conversation. Great.
Thank
Thank you.
you. That is so true because you know us. We good for that. Well, the younger me, I can go not even below the belt, like below your feet. It's like, where do you want to go with this right now? How far low? How, you know what Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. I would go lower. Like, but we ain't gonna go
Like, I got time today, and women, we have memory that's like a mile long. Men be like, "What? That happened? That was with you, not in my other relationships."
Yep, at 4 o'clock p.m. on a Saturday on November 1st. We were sitting in the living room. We can go there. That is
Yeah,
so true. One thing you said, I like that you said that, not, I'm paraphrasing, but not using that as an excuse. Oh, that's just how she is. That's just how he is. That is not an excuse for you to continue that kind of behavior, especially if it's offending someone you're in covenant with,
that's right.
especially if it's offensive to someone you love. That is not excuse. Oh, well, that's just how I am. And I'm guilty. I used to say it all the time. Well, you know me. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's right.
Right,
Talked
right.
about at the top of the hour. That stuff we learned. That don't mean it's right because that's just how you are. Maybe that's something you need to fix. Elaine?
One
Mhm.
of the things I would say along with that is I'm thinking the older you are and you're getting into this new relationship, you have all of these your old ways, so that whole growth mindset is definitely necessary, but I also think it's a challenging thing because you have lived your life, I'm gonna use, independently. You have lived your life, I made it this far by myself. So now bringing someone into your space, whether male or female, um, I think it may it may be twice as hard or it can be twice as easy depending upon where you are in your life and how you see vulnerability, right? Because if I've been hurt, vulnerability is very hard for me, right? If I have gotten over that, then I'm more open to being vulnerable. So it all depends on the stage that you're in and how have you healed from your past traumas.
Yeah. That how have you healed from your past traumas is the key. Not bringing old relational baggage into new relationships. Not forcing your current partner to pay for what the previous person did to you. You have to be so committed to healing after every relationship. And people who bounce from relationships to relationships or have many different sexual partners with no breaks in between do not have the capacity or the ability to experience emotional healing. And they are
No
compounding
breaks.
wounds, compounding hurts, compounding behaviors. And they show up as the 50 people of their past versus the one person that they were created as being. And so we have to like strip, shed away, and understand like what's for me, what's to leave behind, what's to take with me. And none of that happens if you don't process the loss, if you don't get the support or the help where you need it, and if you don't commit to starting over, not repeating the past.
That's good. We're gonna take a commercial break because we love when they talk to us. They're talking to us. But one thing you said just cracked. What you said? No, no break from from the next one. They just go on to the next. Okay,
Against the
I love
will.
it. No break. Just go on. And now you're dealing with 50. You got to unshed 50 secrets.
50 shades or something. All
50
right. Radiant Rose says, I've learned to also make sure I feel safe in having the courage to have certain conversations. If your heart is not safe, the convo is not fully safe to be had. Agreed.
That's a good point.
Um, and if the convo is not safe to be had because your heart is not safe, you must walk away and keep guard of your heart. Absolutely. And I think, sometimes, if I can just add to that, I think sometimes people get into relationships because they feel they don't want to be lonely.
Mm.
And people have to learn the difference between being alone and lonely. They're two different things. And if you're lonely, you will gravitate towards anyone to fill the void, opposed to being alone to find the person that you feel comfortable to have safe space with,
Mm.
to be vulnerable and to say, this is me. No, no makeup, no false pretense. This is my quirky way. And if they can accept you and love you at that level. So I definitely agree with that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, and that's good because something you said, being alone and being lonely, right? Let's learn how to do that for ourselves first. Because
Yes.
sometimes we can get into these relationships and again expect that person to fulfill every need, and we haven't even fulfilled our needs for ourselves. We don't even know who we are. We don't even know what we want. So
Mhm.
I think we need as individuals to figure that stuff out for ourselves before we even get into a relationship.
Absolutely. And I would add that having alone time is truly a gift. Most people don't want to sit with themselves or sit with their thoughts. And so they're always trying to fill the time and the space with something or someone. And it's to the detriment of yourself. When you are alone, you have opportunity to process, you have opportunity to think, and so on and so forth. And so many people just want to avoid those moments like the plague. And then when you are in that space of loneliness, you have to be mindful to not create attachments out of a space of desperation. And when
Hmm.
you're constantly clingy for relationships, clingy for friendship, there's always a deep root of insecurity that is at the root of that. And you will manipulate a situation to serve your need versus the relationship actually showing up as what it could have been, apart from the woundedness of the space that you're operating from. So I know personally, when I see people trying to be very clingy with me, when they're trying to co-opt me for their purposes, they want me to be their BFF, they want me to be this, they want me to be that. Those are huge red flags where I'm going to back up, and men are good for that, right? If they experience a woman that, like, she done planned the wedding, the baby shower, she's planned his life, his plot in the cemetery, they're just like, whoa, like they don't want anyone exerting that level of control over their life. Like, it's pretty scary. And what it's identifying to any person is that you want me to fit the figment that's in your mind versus actually who I am. So will I ever have opportunity in this relationship to be me, or will I always and only have to exist as whom you want me to be? And people who show up in that space only want you to be who they want you to be. And anytime you get outside of that character, they have an issue with you.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh, Tisha said it's hard not to go tit for tat, but that is a part of growing when you can choose to move away from that. Yes.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's not easy.
Mhm.
Radiant Rose says, I used to go tit for tat, but the energy it takes to get off your own personal alignment with greater is too detrimental. So I just release and go.
That's good.
And you must understand that you will attract your level of consciousness, and your partner is a direct reflection of what you feel about yourself and your own inner critic. Very good.
Oh, last
She
one.
says, I am 36 and don't have any women I have to talk about relationships in this manner. So I am
Oh,
grateful that I caught this, my first time seeing this channel. Well, welcome, Radiant
oh,
Rose.
well, welcome. And that's what it's about. So we thank you and we are so happy that you are getting something from this. This is exactly what it's about. Just creating that circle to save. It's a safe space here, even though it's live. It's still a safe space. You're learning and you're gleaning. So this is so cool. Okay, now we kind of touched on this and you can elaborate if you want. What role does active listening play in conflict resolution and how can people become better listeners?
Active listening is everything. Active listening is probably just as important as the conversation itself. Active listening is you intentionally and intently hearing the individual. You're not listening just to respond. You are absolutely not cutting them off. You are letting them complete their thought. If you're someone like me that has a million things running through your mind at any given moment, maybe you need to write down things that they're saying that are points that are really standing out to you that you want to hear, that you want to remember, and you're listening to them, and in that you're giving them your undivided attention. You're not distracted by your devices, or just other stimuli kind of happening around you. You are fully locked in and engaged with this individual who is talking to you, and the only thing they're asking for is your undivided attention. And then after you have heard them, you can ask a simple question of, can I respond to some of the things that you said now? Or is there anything else that you want to share? You become a servant in the conversation when you are an active listener. Again, this is when you are not coming guns blazing and you're not operating in defensiveness, like, I don't want to hear nothing. As an active listener, you are empathetic, you are curious, you are leading with a level of courage, and you want to hear what's being said. And then you can respond to what they said. And I think that's the key with regard to responding. And I know that that wasn't like all of this question in particular, but when you're going to respond to what they said. Don't then bring up stuff from the past. You went back to 1979. No, stay in the moment, stay present in the conversation, respond to what they said, and then take it from there.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, let's keep the train moving.
All right.
Okay, Elaine.
Purpose and alignment. Definition: purpose and alignment in a relationship refers to individuals understanding their personal mission or calling in life and ensuring that their values, goals, and actions align with those in their partner. So, one, how important is it for couples or partners to be aligned, to have aligned values and life purpose?
It is everything. I don't think we spend enough time in relationship talking about purpose and alignment, i.e., you know, talking to them about family, learning their family dynamic, learning how they view family, learning what their faith background is, if they even have a faith background. We just get caught up on in the aesthetic, we get caught up in the superficial, we get caught up on, they like the same food I like. You have to think about what are the building blocks of building a life together. It's more than looks, it's more than feelings. It's, what do you believe? Why do you believe it? It is inviting you both into conversations that are external to you, could be politics, it could be culture. You want to create opportunity to hear how they think, how they respond. I particularly don't understand how you may have couples that are together that are of different faith backgrounds. That is completely unaligned, and will be a marker of potential conflict when children come into the equation. Children that have been created by two people whom have not decided upon a baseline of how they want to live out their lives together in one particular aspect. So you should think about that. Like, what do they think about children? Do they even want to have children? What are their beliefs about family? Again, you have to, one, understand your purpose to even explore purpose with someone else. You should have your own purpose statement. People have their own like life statements, purpose statements, value statements, whatever it is. You should have that for yourself. What is your mission statement? Like, why do you exist? Why do you show up? What do you want out of life and out of the world? That way you'll know what's alignment for you and what does that look like, and what is misalignment. Misalignment might be he wants to move to Japan and you just want to stay in NYC. That's a huge misalignment. That's a relationship that has an expiration date, because although it's good for right now, there will be a decision that will come that will separate. These are things that you could know from the very beginning. Perhaps you're all a meeting in one particular city, but he has desires to move. Are you even willing to move? Think about those things. That's also alignment. So this is like where the tough conversations start to happen, but these are the building blocks of actually building a life together, and not just kind of coexisting in a casual space that can allow for ambiguity. When you're building relationship, when you're building purpose, when you're building alignment, that's because there's a intentionality to want future, and you have to know where you're positioned first in order to explore where they are.
That's good. That's good. Let's move right on to the next one. Let's get past the surface of what food we like and what color we like.
I'm going to go down to, in your experience, what are the most powerful questions to ask oneself to achieve greater alignment in both life and love?
What's important to me? How do I want to be treated? What does respect look like for me? What does it mean for me to be valued? When do I feel at my most happiest? What makes me feel insecure? Um, where do I feel safe? What makes me feel unsafe? What environments cause my nervous system to feel off kilter? What environments bring me the greatest peace? So, questions that get at the heart of self awareness, questions that also expose the root of what you need. I don't know that we spend enough time understanding our needs, and then we have a hard time communicating what we need to someone else, and then we can get frustrated. But the root of our frustration could just be a lack of um, I would say language around what it is that we want. So engaging in process that helps you explore, learn, and understand you. And this is oftentimes a space that can only be cultivated in the intimacy of getting to know yourself, which might happen either on the cusp of probably some difficult life experiences, breakups, job loss. It's the crucial moments in our life that actually help to unpack for us what we want and what we don't want, what's good for us and what's not. And sometimes we don't understand that about ourselves until we experience the opposite, and then have to recognize, oh, I didn't like that. And I don't ever want to experience this again. So, this is why there's purpose in even our painful moments, because we get to learn more about ourselves. You can't learn everything that there is to know about you if you just live in the arc of safety all day. It's just there's no disequilibrium to your environment that would cause um, the real you to come to the surface. So all of those questions that I just shared earlier, I think have definitely been markers for me. And I wish, the 44 going on 45-year-old me was me at 17 and 21. It could have saved, a lot of people a whole lot of heartache, ignorant conversation. But I think Dr. Elaine said this earlier, as we get older, we learn more about ourselves. We start to have some real non-negotiables. Like, there are just certain things that I will not tolerate present day that I might have been amenable to at 25. Today it's a deal breaker. Like, you can just go ahead with that. Like, I don't care how great and wonderful you are, or how much money you have. This is just not going to work out for me. And I think that's the other thing that comes with age, maturity, and how you mature as a woman or as a man. That can also be great markers for creating alignment in your life as well.
That is very good. And one thing I will say, purpose in pain. That is so true. My pain is what has shaped me. throughout my life, and I'm quite sure it's not going to stop because we know how the man upstairs works. So there is purpose in
Mm-hmm.
the pain. So thank you for that. We're going to move on. We're going to talk now about love and compassion. And from this definition, we're going to say love is a deep emotional connection and commitment to someone, while compassion involves understanding and caring for the suffering of challenges of others, leading to actions that help alleviate the suffering. The question is, how can couples maintain compassion and empathy during difficult or tense moments in their relationships?
You have to remember the baseline of why you are in relationship with this person. What do you love about this person? What do you like about this person? Why is this relationship one that is not disposable to you? A very present day temptation for a lot of people is to quickly dispose of someone when there's conflict. That's typically the sign of emotional immaturity. When you
Mm,
can't get past a place of disagreement because you've decided that I don't attribute worth or value to this relationship. So when you want to operate from the baseline of compassion, you're operating from the baseline of I attribute worth and value to this relationship. This relationship means something to me. So therefore, I have grace for failure, disappointment, shortcoming, because this person to me is not someone that I want to necessarily be without. Or this might be a relational dynamic, could be family, could be parental. There's not a framework where I sever my connection with this person. They will always have a level of relational engagement with me. So that compassion and that empathy comes from a baseline of care, comes from a baseline of love, and comes from a baseline of commitment to that relationship. Now, love, we certainly have the understanding that there are different manifestations of love. You know, there is the erotic form of love, and then there is, you know, the agapeo form of love that speaks to deep intimacy. It's the love that is talked about from the biblical space of for those that are Christians and that they look at scripture, a love that believes all things, that bears all things, that keeps no record of wrong, a love that creates a place of commitment where that because I love you, I'm willing to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you have to say. And then I want to be able to see how we can get past this because, again, you are not expendable in my life. Now, I want to say that men and women show up differently in this space because women, we are more intuitive, we are more emotional, we are more quicker to be vulnerable in a relational space. Men function in that space as a baseline of trust. They have to trust that you are going to respect and honor them in the place of vulnerability and that you are going to meet them, you know, where they are. So their place of, I would say, communication, it might not flow as effortlessly as it might be for a woman, but we have to kind of understand, well, what does compassion look like from that man? What does love look like for him? And learn the person that you're with. So here is the other big, I would say, caveat that I would give to anyone in a relational space. Instead of trying to make your partner fit the last podcast that you heard or make them fit the last Instagram post that you read, how about you actually learn the person that you're with? Learn what their needs are. Don't ascribe labels up to that's just the way men are, that's just the way women are. Actually learn the person that you're with and how they show up and what makes them them. And if you can do that from a place of compassion and a place of love, that's the baseline where you can accomplish and overcome many things. Not saying it's not going to be excruciatingly painful. I don't know about you guys, but I have been, you know, in places of conflict that it is painful to be in those places with people. It's painful to hear things said of you or to have people experience you in a way that you would never want them to experience you. Like this is the real stuff that kind of, pains the heart. But how do you endure in those spaces is where real intimacy is cultivated. Can we I love the psychologists talk about like sitting in the well. Can you sit in the well with somebody and hold space with them in the uncomfortability and the discomfort of a painful experience or a painful emotion? And can you survive in that space, or are you going to run from that space? But when we can show up with people in difficulty, that is where that compassion becomes deeper. That's where that love becomes even deeper. And I'm choosing to believe the best in you because I know that you have my best intentions at heart. And if a person doesn't know that you have their best intentions at heart, if they don't know that you're for them, and if you weaponize their words and weaponize their past
Mm.
experiences, they're not going to trust you. But if that's not the case, man, we can overcome just about anything because our foundation is sure and it's anchored in who we are for each other, and that this relationship is not dispendable. And because of that, I want to show up in a different way for you. And if we can get some of those things right, I think we can have a fighting chance to operate with compassion and love.
That's good. I'll say this and then I'll ask my co-host if she has anything to say. It goes back, everything you said, I summed it up into what you said at the top of the show. Love is an action word.
Yeah.
We just don't get to sit and say, okay, I love you or I'm in love with you. What's behind that? What's coming behind that? I need you to show me, because people could say that all day.
And they
And
do.
that, and they do. And even within that, what is your definition of love? Because your definition of love may be totally different than mine. And your definition may not be acceptable to me.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Elaine, you have anything before we move on?
No, we can move on, but this is good.
Okay. So the next question, in moments of hurt or betrayal, how does one find the strength to respond with love and compassion instead of resentment? I think we kind of touched on that, but if you
Mhm.
want to piggyback on that, we can. I think the resentment part we haven't spoke about.
Yeah, this is hard. Betrayal and hurt, those injuries, and that is what we should liken it to. Just think about a physical assault. A betrayal or hurt is an infliction of wound upon your psyche, upon your soul, upon your spirit. And you might not be able to see the depth of the injury, but the trauma can cause there to be now a formulation of your personality that seeks to prevent pain versus the person whom you existed before the infraction occurred. And so I think this is a space where we need support from external persons. I would say trusted confidants. These are people that are a champion of you and the person you are in relationship with. This is not the, get them girl posse, that kind of dynamic. People who are not going to just like egg you on in what you're feeling, but people who love you both to say the hard things, but also they love you both to want to support you both through a difficult moment and see you come out on the other side together. This is the space where you might need therapy, you might need counseling, you need external support to process the hurt and the pain and to heal the wounds. When it comes to hurt and betrayal, there can always be a violation of trust. And that trust is going to have to be reestablished. That's going to take time. You need to know that that's okay. You need to understand what that process looks like for you. And I think you and the person you're in a relationship with have to understand that the relationship dynamic has to be repaired as well. So it's the individual, and now the relationship has been injured. And so that too has to be repaired. And I think, again, this is where we need those trusted voices in our life, either pastor, either friends, counselor, or therapist that can help us, walk through this process so that we don't create walls that keep people out as a result of what we've been through, that we allow the wound to heal. When you're creating walls and when you are engaging in now trauma responses and trigger responses, that is evidence that the deep work of healing has not completely happened, because now you are living in an altered state of being versus the state that you were in, your baseline state, that state of that child that has not been wounded, or fractured or harmed. You've created now a pseudo personality that is anti-pain, which sometimes means you're anti-intimacy. There's just going to be a space that you can't go with individuals. That's the
Mm-hmm.
person that might say, man, I really want to be in relationship, but I don't know if I can trust anybody with my heart that way again. When you start to put those sorts of walls up, you prevent yourself from having healthy relationships. So you will constantly live in a cycle of bondage. You will be in your present, but operating in your past, because your wall is going to keep you in your past. You think it's protecting you, but it's actually encapsulating that traumatic experience. And you need people to help you to tear those things down and help you to establish a new level of normal that does not rob you of future intimacy with other people. So I say all day long, get support, to deal with those very painful realities, and don't make a monument of your pain. Don't make a monument of your pain.
That's good. And one thing you said about walls, how I like to explain it is walls block us. So if you have the walls up, nothing can get in and nothing can come out.
Totally.
So you're just pretty much hostage at this point. So absolutely.
Well,
Elaine, you have anything?
you're apathetic too and just cut off from everything.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. No,
You
she
come
covered everything.
and you become desensitized
Totally.
to everything, and then it's I don't care, and and something before I move on, something you said took me back when you said the Get 'em Girl posse. I used to have one of, yeah, y'all know when y'all was young and y'all got hurt, y'all went out there and say, girl, let me tell you what happened. Meet me downstairs, because I ain't gonna say, yeah, just meet me downstairs. We're gonna go over here and handle some stuff. I don't want to get too deep. So
Yeah.
our last question is, what are some daily habits that can nurture love and compassion between partners? What's some daily habits?
Communication, quality time, honesty, vulnerability, trust, commitment, love, empathy, compassion, always remembering, what's best for you about that person. What has drawn you to this person? Why is this, your person? When I was in a very wounded time of my life and being in a relationship in that space, I look back now and I'm just like, wow, I think I used to drive my ex-boyfriend crazy. But the slightest things used to set me off. I was very emotionally immature, and because of that, didn't always communicate how I was feeling, and would immediately become very inward and be very angry and have an attitude and shut down emotionally, and all the rest of that. And I remember he said to me, why don't you defend me to yourself? And that is something that has stuck with me to this day, probably 20 plus years later. Why don't you
Wow.
defend me to yourself? When that narrative starts to go in your mind about, yeah, he's always doing this, or yeah, he's just like that. Like, why don't you stop yourself and be like, nope, that's not who he's been to me. That's not who she's been to me. I'm thinking about something else. Like, do we operate from a baseline of believing the best in the person that we are with? Or are we operating from a place of a self-fulfilling prophecy of, I am expecting you to disappoint me the same way the last
Mm.
person did? I'm expecting you to wound me. If you are expecting those things and if you are looking for those things, you're going to find it. But if you actually want to give that person the opportunity to show up as whom they are, not whom the people of your past were, you're going to have to defend them in your own mind. And I think the last thing I would say to underscore, I personally don't know how people make it in this life without Christ and without faith in God. But I would also dare to offer that if you really want to cement a very healthy and good relationship, you can do that in relationship with the God that created the two people that's in the relationship, and incorporate prayer into your relationship, incorporate, communion and fellowship with scripture, and have a fighting chance to allow a power that's greater than yourselves to conform you into an image and a likeness that will serve you both and others as a result of the relationship. So yeah, those would be the things that I would offer, but sometimes we just got to believe the best and just defend people in our own mind.
That was, I think I might have to steal that one. I guess whenever I get in a relationship, I don't even know what that'll look like at this point. But yeah, that's good. Why don't you defend me to yourself?
Mm.
That's good.
Oh, I need to send him a check for that because I use that often.
Yeah, that was so good. And again, we thank you for being here. So many jewels, so much wisdom drop. We actually, I forgot what's the lady name? We help somebody out, and that's what this is about. Speaking from personal
Radiant Rose.
experiences. Yes, Radiant Rose, Radiant Rose. So we thank you for being here, Radiant Rose. And as we do always, we like our guests to have the last and final word. I will say something. Elaine will say something. You will have the final word, and we will close out. What I want to say is thank you to all who tuned in today. Hopefully, we untangled some things from you. We learned about a growth mindset, love, and compassion. And as always, Harlem Girls, there's more in you.
I would say the piece that relationships are not disposable. I think that that is something that I will take away, to just look at and value things differently and just have that growth mindset going forward in not in all relationships, not just on one level, but being able to look at different relationships from different aspects and seeing the value to make
Mhm.
sure that people are being seen, heard, and valued.
Yeah, it's good.
And you have the final word to take us out.
Oh wow. Well, that's an amazing honor. I would just offer to us, relationships can be difficult, but they are so rewarding. And the fruit that can come out of this space, I do believe will have generational impact. We can show others how to have healthy relationships, which do not involve canceling, which do not involve ghosting, which actually involve showing up as emotionally healthy, mature, individuals that are capable of going the distance and are capable of raising healthy little people, in the process. So, where you may have fallen short in the past, get up, dust yourself off. We live in an age that where we have a plethora of resources to help us be our best selves, and lean into them. And don't make a monument of your own mindset, but actually dare to allow others to invest in you so that you can, grow and be the best version of you that you could possibly be.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And again, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll see y'all backstage. Thank you so much. Good
Bye.
night, everyone.